Ladies and gentlemen, it is a Friday, so we thought to ourselves, why not have a recap about the stories we spoke about during the course of this week and last week and see the updated stories around those particular stories. And today we'll start with Black economic empowerment. We made a video a few days ago where basically the Constitutional Court said procurement regulations don't need BEE anymore, but things have progressed quite a lot in that regard. And joining me is, of course, friend of the channel, well, not just friend, like channel
Fuck you.
Byron, my correspondent from Kabuki Land.
Right. Okay, so this was a story that we did a couple of days ago where we announced that PE was dead. However, just to re-highlight to everybody, a point that we did make in the video, and so something I would like to reiterate now, is that we did say PE was not dead. All it was being descaled in the merit list. So what that allowed the state-owned enterprises to do is to effectively say you didn't have to be 100% BEE in order to be granted a tender, and that if you were BEE, it would count for between 10 and 20 points, and that other scores could be attributed depending on the bid that you gave. So we did make it very clear that whilst the BEE had been descaled, it had been delisted in terms of the hierarchy of merit, it was still there. Now, Cyril's gone on a rampage because obviously he's had some pushback. A lot of media outlets have stated that BE was dead, and Cyril's gone on an outrage to basically say, no, it's not. The ANC remains committed to BEE.
Indeed, and according to Cyril, as you can see right here, he says the regulations promulgated by the Minister of Finance around procurement do not at all have an effect on the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Act. So, as Byron did say, all organs of state must comply with the BEE Act, and the regulations don't do anything to discard what the BEE Act actually wants to make. And instead of BE being the main thing in terms of public tenders, now it's going to be a factor in public tenders, and his heart is really set on that. And you know what, Byron? Let's be really honest here. BE can make sense in some ways, right? If you really want to transform the country, you want to give opportunities to blacks around the country, BE can work through public procurement, assuming, of course, those BE tenders work, right? But they don't. Like, BE has killed the nation, it has killed civilians, it has killed state-owned enterprises. It kills everything it touches because the people who take part in it have zero skills whatsoever.
Yeah, I would fundamentally disagree with you on this, and that I don't believe BE does make sense for a number of reasons. The first is that it's basically black supremacist so far as it only says we want to enrich a specific subset of people. Over 25 years into democracy into South Africa, these BE rules have been going on for some time. At what point in time do you say the economy is sufficiently transformed? At the end of the day, the economy is meant to work for every South African, regardless of race, regardless of gender. If they're members of the state and they've lived here and they legitimately live here, in other words, they're not an illegal immigrant, then the economy should work for them. It should grow with them, and it should empower them as citizens of the state. The state is not there for one racial category only. Yes, we understand that this specific category of individuals was disadvantaged during apartheid. That is understood. Every individual in the country understands that. So we are not advocating for them to continually be disadvantaged. But what we do have to say at some point in time is that the economy must work for all citizens of South Africa, not just this subsection of citizens of South Africa. And that is what the economy is currently doing.
Well, I mean, yes, but you can agree with me hypothetically, right? If we had a sunset clause on BE in terms of procurement processes that are strictly for Africans, so you can't say black anymore, and there's a sunset clause, and the assumption is it will be a merit-based tender system, but based on race. We can swallow that as a nation for 10 years after 94. But of course,
but we're 27 years in.
No, I get that. Now it doesn't make sense.
And I don't buy that comment that, we can't say black. We must say African. I'm African. You're African. Maybe we're bloody born here because we're as African as they come. We lived our entire life. At the end of the day, you're African. You're not black. These rules are there to promote black individuals. They're not Indian economic empowerment rules. They're not Cape-colored empowerment rules. They are black economic empowerment rules. And Cyril has basically said that he intends to continue to push black economic empowerment basically forever. He doesn't have a sunset clause. He doesn't have a point in time where we basically say enough's enough. And the problem is, according to Cyril, is that blacks are unable to make it without the state disadvantaging everyone else. They have to handicap everybody else in order for blacks to play on their level playing field. Well, that's the highest degree of racism. BE really needs to be done away with now. Like, it's had its day. It's no longer serving the economy. It is disadvantaging the economic growth.
Yeah, I agree. So, I'm just making a hypothetical argument about BE perhaps once upon a time being moral, but of course not anymore. But speaking of empowering blacks, we do know the best form of transport in the world is donkey carts. And we did have a story earlier this week about the government of the Northwest buying a whole lot of donkey carts, but apparently it looks like it hasn't worked out terribly well because they were delivered, and a week later, most of them, well, we don't know how many, but some of them have broken because they just can't handle the rough terrain.
Some godforsaken place in the Northwest had spent just under $1 million, so not small change, on donkey carts, just over 20 donkey carts for the area. And they highlighted the unsuitability of any other transport because of the terrain. You would have thought that the donkey carts that were created would cater for that terrain. We called it, even when we did the article, we knew it was be as corrupt as hell, and it was corrupt as hell. The donkey carts that have been produced, unfit for purposes, and the locals are now saying they're actually unprepared to use them because they know if they do use them, they'll get damaged. So the donkey carts are just sat there, unused.
What a surprise. But don't worry, the Northwest government has said we shouldn't talk about fake news about these donkey carts. Some have broken, but that's why they have a 3-year maintenance plan or service plan or whatever the hell they want to call them. The great thing is, based on the end paragraph of the story, a community member says the carts were designed by people who'd never used the cart before. So therefore, he had ditched the new donkey cart and has gone back to his previous one, which he has used since 2011 and which he paid 1,800 Rand for. These new ones cost 40,000 Rand.
So will he be doing a refund to the Northwest for the just over 700,000 Rand that he's been overpaid for donkey carts that basically don't work? Well, I think we all know the answer to that, don't we?
Indeed, we do. So that's empowerment gone down the drain once again. Speaking of empowerment, our final recap story is of our dearly beloved Kidi Amin. So Kidi Amin, earlier this week, it was disclosed that allegedly he's sort of Dan Bilzerian, but without the money and the hot woman. He's just like a wannabe influencer, for lack of a better term, because based on the new book by Jacques Poe, he really liked his whiskey, his condoms, his cocaine, and a variety of other fast food in apartments owned by his white boss, Adriano Mazzotti. But now the EFF have taken the Barbra Streisand effect to heart and said they immediately want the book to be completely banned everywhere, otherwise they will sue. I'm sure we have seen this before, Byron, especially concerning the author, Jacques Poe.
So this is a news story where a new book has come out and basically said that Julius Malema and Mazzotti had frequently engaged in cocaine and drugs, and large quantities of cash was being circulated, and there were stories of condoms and alcohol and hookers. Did this come as any surprise? No. Now, the first thing is Julius has obviously come out with it because he has to, and he has to say, well, actually, I think it's all lies, and if you don't delist the book or take it off of any form of publication, I will be suing the publisher. Well, we've heard that comment many times and nobody ever gets sued. So, Julius, if you're listening, put your money where your mouth is, mate. Let's go to court and you prove your allegations wrong.
Actually,
that being said,
put Mazzotti's money where your mouth is, please.
However, the key thing that every individual should take a note of, and you should ask yourself the random questions for, is where does Julius get his wealth from? As a parliamentary MP, his salary per year is about $1 million, which after taxes, probably not going to be that much, to be honest. Outside of that, he obviously has the memberships. So he's trying to get 1 million members for the EFF. Remember that each member gets like 10 Rand, which means that that entire organization could be, in theory, only worth 10 mil, which if you run a large organization, actually isn't a lot of money considering it has headquarters in the middle of Johannesburg, which I doubt are very cheap. That being said, he declares every year that they don't really get any real donations above 100,000. He says the entire organization is funded by party members, which I find questionable, considering that Julius actually caters to the unemployed and the disadvantaged, which implies they probably don't have the money to pay their membership. So one has to ask the question, where is Julius getting his money? Let's not forget, a few years ago, this was a man who was near bankruptcy because he had a large debt he owed SARS. He owned a property, which was a farm, an underdeveloped farm, which had to go under auction because he had to pay off some of his debts. This is a man that was on his knees not more than 10 years ago. And so you have to ask yourself the question, where is he getting his money? And whenever Julius is asked this question, he goes, party donations. Well, I hate to say it, Julius, we don't believe you. So the allegations, and I would highlight it is still an allegation, that there is a form of corruption going out there and bags of cash are being handed to the man. It's not that far-fetched, given what we can see.
So based on my sources, the EFF makes money in 3 separate ways. Number one, they open branches in foreign countries, and those branches send through like a license fee or a royalty fee. So you got the EFF branch in Nigeria and Zambia and Namibia and all the rest of them. Apparently quite a lot of money comes back based on licensing. Number two, merch sales. You go on their website, they sell jackets and t-shirt and whatever. Like the ANC like gives you a t-shirt, the EFF wants you to buy one. Like very capitalist of them. Apparently they make a lot of money through that. And number three, of course, is corruption. Every time they are in cities or in municipalities, they do like to rig the tenders in their favor. And Herman Mashaba famously did that with the AfriRent tender in Joburg when he was mayor. So the EFF make money in a variety of ways. They're very cunning business people, much more cunning than most people within the ANC, because the EFF do pay their staff members, unlike some members of the ANC. But in terms of this particular story, the EFF wants to sue Jacques Poe, just like the SARS and the Secret Services wanted to sue Jacques Poe in 2017 when he released The President's Keepers. What is the reaction? Oh, The President's Keepers became the best-selling book of all time in South African history. So hopefully this happens as well. And if there is a case by Julius Malema, I hope there's discovery and Jacques Poe and his publisher will be able to lay out all the evidence for everyone to see. But I have sincere doubts Julius is going to go to court with this one because A, if it is true, he's screwed. But if it's not true, why isn't he going to court? We will see. It's a bit too early to call this.
Yeah, I mean, we called this even when we did the video, and that is, we don't think, even if the story is true, any form of repercussions will occur to Julius. SARS are not exactly going to investigate. One of the things that we've seen from the state capture period, and one of the things that we've seen from the Zonda reports are you can spell everything out to the MPA in black and white with all the documentation you want. If you're politically connected, you ain't going to prison.
Yeah, and that really is your Friday recap.
Time for a bonus round.
Oh, is there a bonus round?
So bonus round. Yeah, so the bonus round is, and this is breaking news that has just come in. So whilst we're talking about this, at the moment, we are on stage 2/3 of Eskom's load shedding. We have now heard from Eskom itself. While we are load shedding, we will be forced to load shed because we don't have money for diesel.
Whatever happened to that $8.5 billion from the Whiteys in Europe? Yeah, maybe they can't spend it on diesel. Here's a lot of money. You can't spend it on anything other than like windmills and stuff. I'm not saying there's Illuminati, but if they did exist, they would work exactly in this manner, really. And our government's too stupid to even notice. That's it for this Friday. Have a lovely, lovely weekend. We will see you all on Monday, bright and early. Bye.
Thanks.